To kick things off, put your hands together for this year's returning conference sponsor and UCLA alumni, Beth Friedman.
Good morning. My name is Beth Friedman, and I want to welcome you all to the 7th annual UCLA Anderson School of Management Velocity Women's Leadership Summit. Thank you all for making the time to be here this morning. I am honored by the opportunity to again lend my support to a women's conference featuring impressive speakers, dedicated organizers, and inspiring members of this audience, including deans from across the UCLA campus and luminaries from the Los Angeles community. Among them, Dean Al Osborne from the Anderson School of Management, and our honored guest today, Barbara Streisand. This conference emerged from many meetings and discussions with former Dean Judy Olian, who wanted to show Anderson graduate students and others the impact of women. Our theme this year asks us to consider what it means to be bold. We have been taught to think of boldness as big dramatic actions played out in the spotlight by public figures who we think of as fearless. On the surface, these women do seem to be fearless, but the facts tell us something quite different. In the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, you gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. Can you imagine the fear that former slave Sojourner Truth must have faced to become a leader in the abolitionist movement? Or what it was like for Susan B. Anthony to spend more than 50 years fighting for a woman's right to vote? And what must Amelia Earhart have been thinking as she took to the sky to become the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic? And how did Eleanor Roosevelt overcome the difficulties of a devastating childhood filled with rejection and loss to become one of the most effective and outspoken first ladies of our time? All of these women were bold. They were trailblazers, and they will be remembered as heroines of the women's movement. More recently, there are larger-than-life women who do seem to define the word bold. They include Sally Ride, the first American woman in space, Israel's first woman prime minister, Golda Meir, England's first woman prime minister, Margaret Thatcher, Justices Sandra Day O'Connor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the first women on the US Supreme Court. And of course, the writer, director, producer, actor, recording star, and political activist, Barbra Streisand. And then there are the women whose boldness has had a huge impact on the way we live, but whose names remain in the shadows of history. How about Rosalind Franklin? She was the first woman to confirm the structure of DNA, but the Nobel Prize went to Watson and Crick, who based their work on her discovery. Or Margaret Hamilton, who developed the onboard software that landed the Apollo 11 lunar module safely on the moon. Few know her name or the name of Grace Hopper. She wrote the COBOL programming language. Or Marie Van Britten Brown. She developed the technology that became the basis for all home security systems. And then I can't leave out UCLA alumna Dr. Martin Rothblatt, who holds a UCLA JD and MBA and is a serial entrepreneur. She was part of the founding of SiriusXM Radio, and she's the first transgender CEO of a major pharmaceutical company, United Therapeutics. Of course, being bold isn't just reserved for the famous who operate in public, or for those private geniuses who confront the world's major problems from the spotlight. There are also ordinary people who have been bold in their own lives, and they set a strong example for others. women such as my mother, Wendy Harnick. My mom was bold, but I'm not sure anyone would have called her that. And I certainly didn't see her as bold until I was much older and I became a mother myself. She had a quiet strength, the kind that was consistent, persistent, and powerful. My memories of my mother helped me understand that boldness has many faces. My mom was not fearless, but neither were Sojourner, Susan, Amelia, and Eleanor. Each one of those women had their own fears, but they acted anyway. As one of my favorite sayings goes, courage is fear that has said its prayers. It's interesting, Eleanor Roosevelt really was my mother's hero. And when my mom was finishing high school, she was awarded a $250 college scholarship from the First Lady. On the wall of my home, I have a picture of my mom getting that check from Eleanor Roosevelt, together with a letter congratulating her. I walk by this picture at least 10 times a day, and I love the fact that Eleanor Roosevelt, who was a role model and inspired so many women of that generation, helped launch my mother's college career. With that $250 college scholarship, my mother enrolled in Brooklyn College, seizing the chance for a higher education and the opportunity to learn more about the world. But in her senior year, she met my father, who was 5 years older and living abroad. She left Brooklyn College and moved to a new country to be with the love of her life. She didn't know the language, the culture, the people, but she raised a family there and thrived. That was bold and certainly untraditional in 1958. And it was my mother's way of creating opportunities for herself and her new husband. Most importantly, though, it didn't dampen her aspirations for a life that was not just about family. When my mom returned to the United States, she went back to finish her college degree and prepare for law school while she still had children at home. Her friends weren't doing these things any more than Amelia Earhart's generation were taking flying lessons. By the time I was off to college in the late 1970s, some things had changed for women, but the change was slow. Even the most intelligent, capable women were still very, very defined by the men around them. I wanted to be different, so I chose Wellesley College, where women were professors of science and economics. There was a woman president at Wellesley when I arrived, and a new one when I graduated. And in fact, Wellesley has had exclusively women presidents since 1875. In college, my classmates and my female professors inspired me to dream big and think independently. So I decided to go to graduate school here at the Anderson School of Management. My Anderson MBA has been a very useful helping tool, helping me navigate each major change in my professional life. Over the course of the last 30 years, my life has taken a number of different paths. I have been involved in the professional world as a banker. I have been deeply involved in a number of not-for-profits and philanthropic activities that focus on education and healthcare. And for many years, I chose to make my highest priority raising my 3 boys. But as my children got older and more independent, I began a new adventure. I drew on the strength of my mom, who never lost sight of her dreams. I searched for my dreams, and I discovered that I wanted to be a champion for women. I wanted to provide inspiration and leadership, particularly for women who had become empty nesters like myself and were looking for ways in which to re-engage. That led me to create In Her Circle. My goal was to embolden women by exposing them to exemplars of creativity and impact, women who have dreamed big and made a difference. As I've listened to the women speakers that I've hosted and so many others over the years, I hear a consistent theme. Those who are bold are the ones who are able to define their own goals, their values, often in the face of fear and adversity. They have the ability to imagine things that don't yet exist and the courage to move in the direction of those dreams, no matter the obstacles. Those values, those goals are also why I am happy to be here to support this summit of extraordinary women today. By listening to our speakers and through your interactions and connections with them and with each other, you will see women today whose lives have been complicated, nonlinear journeys. You will learn that even those women you've read about, who you think of as heroines, share some of your uncertainties and your questions. You will encounter compelling narratives illustrating how diverse the many individual pathways to professional accomplishment and personal happiness there truly are. The power of a summit like this is that it provides the opportunity to authentically discover the many faces of boldness. Some of you will be very bold in very public ways, while others will change their community and the world a lot more quietly. How you do it, what matters is that you are finding that part of yourself that maintains your own light, defines your own path, and despite the challenges that you face, propels you boldly towards your dreams. And while you are being bold, I will be up here cheering you on.